Hello and welcome to episode 1 of 2 of the Dragons Are Real podcast. My name is Pete Jones. So in this episode I'm going to be talking about the game Dark Streets and Darker Secrets. But before we get onto the main subjects, let's have a look at what I've been up to recently. So the first thing is I've set up an itch.io page, and this is so I can distribute all of my content that was previously on my website. So you can find the itch page at dragonsarereal.itch.io, and everything is free to download. And the items I've got on there at the moment, I've got my 3 issues of my Dragon Are Real zine. I've also got my Flash Gordon conversion for ICRPG. So you want to check that out, and that's got the conversion rules, taking it from Savage Worlds to ICRPG with all the creatures as well. I've also got the long game, which is a minimal D6 game, so you can download that one for free. And I have got my minimal dice pool and its companion supplement. So if you want to check those out, head over to dragonsarereal.itch.io. In the news, just as I was about to put this together, we have some news from Astral. Apparently, Astral tabletop development has been put on hold. It began life as Power VTT in 2017, and then it had the backing of One Bookshelf, the parent company of DriveThruRPG, and they pumped some stuff into it, pumped some money into it, tried to get it up and running. This was before COVID, and they've got some purchasable items through it as well, content through it. But the developer has now decided to retire from the tabletop, and it's been put on, any development's been put on hold, although it will continue for the foreseeable future. How long that will be, nobody knows. And you can no longer buy any premium content through Astral, although your content you have already bought is still there. But if at some point they pull Astral Tabletop, then unfortunately you're probably going to lose everything. So it's a good idea not to tie all of your content into one VTT, because if they go away, then you've lost everything you've purchased. Next up, we're going to have a look at the Level Up 5e Kickstarter. This is by Enworld and Morris, and this is advanced 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So they've taken the OGL and made it their own. There are currently 3 books. There's the Adventurer's Guide, which is your player's handbook. There's Trials and Treasures, which is your GM guide. And finally, you've got your Monstrous Menagerie, which is your monster manual. So if you like 5e and you want some advanced rules, then I do suggest that you check out this Kickstarter. It will be coming to full print after. And the reason that I became interested in it was because of the journey rules in it. Because journeys in 5e can be problematic, especially when you look at exhaustion. Now, if you don't know, with exhaustion, you have 6 levels in 5th edition, and I'm running Adventures in Middle-earth, which makes heavy use of the exhaustion mechanic. Now, at first level of exhaustion, you have a disadvantage on all ability checks, and that is quite a big problem for first level. When you get to second level, as well as that, your speed is halved, and each level is cumulative. On the third level, you get a disadvantage on all your attack rolls and your saving throws. And then fourth level, your hit point maximum is halved. At 5th level, your speed is reduced to 0. So at 5th level, if you think about it, you've got disadvantage on all throws, you can't move, and your hit points are halved. And then when you get to 6th level, you are dead. And as I said, it can be ramp up quite quickly in 5e. And in this advanced 5e book, level 5 up by Enworld, they've got some alternative fatigue rules. So I had a look at these, and they, as well as the alternative journey rules, they've got an alternative fatigue system, which is split into 2. And while I was looking into this and the discussion on it, I found a good couple of blogs about other people, what they've done to get around this. And one that I really like is I found on Reddit, and this suggests that each level of fatigue you get, so instead of getting 6 levels of exhaustion, you get 6 levels of fatigue. And at each level, you get -1 per level for all attacks, saves, checks, and DC rolls. So instead of disadvantage, you're only getting -1 to your dice roll each level. So by the time you get to 5th level, you'll be up to -5 for all attacks, saves, checks, and DC. And that isn't too extreme. And as your fatigue gets worse, obviously your rolls are getting a little bit worse. But what it also adds to that is for each level, you get -5 feet to your speed, which is a minimum of 5 feet. So your minimum movement is 5 feet. You can never go below 5 feet. And again, that makes sense. As the more fatigue you get, the slower you get, as well as your minus rolls. Now, what also someone else suggested was that you could also add on a couple of special rules for each level of exhaustion. So we start off with our -5 speed per level, as well as our -1 to all rolls. And then when we get to level 2, that character can no longer take reactions. They are tired, they're fatigued, so they can no longer take any reaction rolls. When they get to level 3, they can only take an action or a bonus. So if they have action and bonuses, they have to decide between which one because they're getting tired. By the time you get to 4th level, they can't concentrate and can only make 1 attack. So if they're a multi-attack character, they can only do 1 attack. And at 5th level, they fail all saves and are vulnerable to all damage. And I think this is makes a lot more sense over the exhaustion rules. And I think I'm probably going to try and get it into my games, into my adventures in Middle Earth, because it ramps up slowly, but it does make a lot more sense. So that's what I wanted to talk about before we get onto the main subject. So let's do that. We're going to talk today about dark streets and darker secrets. So this is available through drivethrurpg.com. It's by Diogo Nogueira and is 222 pages in length. You can pick it up on drive-through. I got it for £2 when it was the sale of the day. I think it's currently running at £7.27 UK. And I've just had a quick look at the website, and it is available in hardcover on print on demand for £18.20. You can also find the full text of this book on Diogo's blog, which is oldschoolpublishing.com. Check out his blog on there, and he's got the full text on there as it is an OGL, so that is quite good if you want a text copy. Diogo, for those who are familiar with him or not familiar with him, he also wrote Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells and Soulless Blades and Cosmic Spells. Now, what I find fascinating with this book is that this whole 222 page book was written in 1 month. Yes, 1 month only, for the National Game Design Month. And it is a tremendous piece of work to do in 1 month. So we're going to have a look at the setting and the rules. So let's get on to see what we've got in Dark Secrets. So the setting, it's street and sorcery rules light role-playing game. It is really in the old school spirit, using some of the old school ideals, and it is adventures in the current world, so set in the modern day. But there are some twists with it. There is a layer of supernatural weirdness and horror over setting it. And if you've listened to my liminal review a while ago, then it's that sort of same setting, modern day with horror, supernatural all thrown in. The core mechanic, it is a D20 based system and uses a positive and negative dice mechanic, which to the rest of us is advantage and disadvantage, where you throw extra dice and take the either best or the worst results. The GM sets a difficulty between 1 and 5, or this difficulty can be set by the difference between the PC levels and the NPC levels. And basically, you must roll equal or under your attribute but over the difficulty. So you're rolling between two sets of numbers. If you roll over your attribute or below your difficulty, you fail. If you roll below the difficulty, it adds a complication. So for example, if you're doing lock picking and you roll under your attribute, but you roll the difficulty, then you have a complication. And if you're picking a lock, it could be something like that the lock has broken. NPCs, when they make rolls, they roll over the PC's attribute. So the higher the PC's attribute is better for them to roll, but it also makes it harder for NPCs to roll against them. PCs can also do a resisted test, and basically they both roll a d20, add any modifiers to the roll, and the highest succeeds. So let's have a look at character creation. There are 4 attributes: physique, agility, intellect, and willpower. And these are generated by rolling 2d6 and adding +3, giving a range of 5 to 15. And the maximum human attribute is 18. Then we create a character concept, and that's a free-form character summary. So for example, it could be a private investigator or foolhardy policeman. Then you choose one of 4 archetypes, and they are the tough, which is your hand-to-hand fighter, the nimble, which is your range fighter, the smart, which is the brains or researcher, and the gifted, and that's the one with magical powers, whether it be psionics or spell casting. You have special abilities for each class, and these are things like the too tough to die once per adventure. Upon reaching 0 vitality, the tough immediately regains 1d6 plus level vitality. It could be something like a luck reroll or forgoing movement to aim. Then you pick any mundane equipment from the list, and then you calculate some set scores, and these are derived scores. So your vitality, which is your hit points, is physique plus 1 per level, or if you're the tough, is physique plus 2 per level. Your sanity, which is your mental stability, and that's equal to your intellect, and your luck score is 3. You then create a complication, which is from a D66 list, and it could be such thing as debts to a crime boss, addictions, secrets, that sort of thing. So some nice hooks there for your character creation. It lists your recovery roll, which is a d6, and it's usually a plus 0, 1, or 2. Money is abstracted, and it starts at a fixed number of 2. And basically, if you want to buy anything, you must roll a d6, and you're trying to roll equal or under your current money number. And if you fail, that number is reduced by 1, making it harder to buy something in the future. The GM can modify this roll for expensive goods by up to +5. And you can add money points to your roll, so you can spend some of your money to make your roll higher. And you can do things like buy rare items, which are up to 20 points, so you can scale things quite nicely and make it easier or harder for players to buy. When it comes to advancement for characters, after 2 adventures, you level up every level up to level 8. Then after level 8, it then becomes every 2 adventures, so nice and simple. When you level up, you gain a level. Your special abilities may improve. Your vitality goes up by 1, or if you're tough, up by 2. And then you roll for an attribute to see if it improves. And what you do is you roll a d20, and if it's greater than your current attribute, it goes up by 1. And of course, the maximum remains at 18. Once you've picked an attribute to roll for, you can then roll for 2 of your prime attributes, and one of these cannot be the same as the one you just rolled for. Then we get onto gear. So gear is mainly mundane gear, and you basically pick the gear you want. All gear has a durability score, and that durability score is usually 3. Swords and medieval weapons are still in use in this world, and they're usually causing damage of between 1d6 -1 to 1d6 +1. and can of course be of special materials like silver. There are guns and hand crossbows with special ammo, so you can fire silver arrows and silver bullets. Armor is split into 3 types: light, medium, and heavy, and that reduces damage by 1 points. And you have shields, which also block attacks, and depending on the size of the shield, it either blocks 1 to 3 attacks round. There is a table of weird items, a D100 table, and it's such things as drugs, services, and illegal services. There's encumbrance baked into the rules, and this is the number of items you can carry equal to your physique. So I did mention gear durability. So what is that? Well, each gear is an average of 3 durability, but it can range from anywhere between 0 and 5. And when you use it, or when called for by the GM to roll for durability, you roll a d6. And if it is equal or greater than the current durability, it's reduced by 1. So the lower the number gets, the more likely it is to reduce. When it reaches 0, it is destroyed, or it is empty, depending on the type of gear it is. And as a player, you can repair items before they are destroyed. So if you got an item that gets down to 1 or 2 durability, maybe you don't use it anymore, and you look at repairing it to get it back up to what it was before. So it's quite a nice and simple system. So let's have a look at some of the other rules that we've got in the game. Basically, whenever a PC rolls a natural attribute score, bang on. So if your attribute is 15 and you roll dead on 15, that is called a critical success. A critical failure is always a natural roll of 20. And as I said before, we have difficulty for all rolls, and that is set between 0 to 5, and that's set by the GM through their experience or by using the powerful opponent rule. Now, basically, NPC have hit dice like they do in the old school games. And you compare that hit dice to the PC level. If the NPC hit dice is greater than the PC level, then the difference is the difficulty set by the GM. Players can also elect to push rolls and roll it again, and this is entirely up to them. But to do this, they have to explain what extra they are doing to try and succeed at the roll they are making. If they fail, there is a dire consequence this time to whatever they do. So it is really a push your luck type system if you want to go for that and take the chance. Luck is also built into the game, and you have a luck score, and whenever you're asked to test your luck, you roll a d6, and if you roll equal or less than your luck number, you succeed and you are lucky. If you fail, your luck is reduced by 1. When it gets to 0, all luck rolls in future are automatic fails. It refreshes at the start of the next adventure, so you're not going to get any more luck until the next adventure. At any time, the PC can refuse to make a luck roll and just accept their fate. It's not required to make it, so you can pick and choose when you want to make that luck roll. You may get advantage or disadvantage on your luck roll based on your concept. So if it's something that a private eye might be experienced at, GM gives you advantage on that. And you can also be offered a setback by the GM and accept the increase in luck by +1. So instead of making your roll, the GM tells you, look, this is going to happen. If you accept it and it's bad for you, increase your luck by 1. And also by invoking your complication, which we rolled for earlier, you can also get +1 luck. That is until the end of the session. So we also have sanity and madness. So when required, the GM can ask the players to make a willpower test. If they fail this willpower test, they suffer a sanity loss. And this is a number usually between a D3 and 2d6 depending on the severity of the incident or the situation they are in. When your sanity reaches 0, you get a level of madness, which you can only acquire 3 times, and this usually gives you disadvantage. After you've got it 3 times, if you get any more madness, your character succumbs to the madness and is retired from the game. Let's have a quick look at combat. So it obviously uses the core mechanics. To decide on initiative in a combat, every PC makes an agility roll with the NPCs hit dice as the difficulty. Those that succeed on their rolls, they act before the NPC. Those fail, act after, and NPCs act in the hit dice order. When it comes to damage, that is measured with the vitality stat, and damage is split into lethal and non-damage. When it's reduced to 0 vitality, you have a number of rounds equal to your level before you are dead, and in that time that your other characters can try to heal you. It can also cause loss of permanent physique and agility scores as well. So damage can be quite brutal, but you do get a bit of a chance to heal before it all happens. So then we get on to spells. So spells are used by the gifted class, and basically they spend vitality points equal to the difference in the spell power and the PC level, and reduce the number of vitality points they've got. They make a willpower test using the spell power as the difficulty, and if they roll the difficulty, they have a choice. They can either lose the power for the day, they can suffer a backlash and you roll on the table, and you can also gain corruption. So with these spells and psionics, there are 60 sample spells and psionics in the book. There's rules for creating special artifacts, magical artifacts as well. These spells are things like energy blast, energy shield, and you get the general idea. Have a look through the book or have a look at the video to see some example spells on screen. So in the world, there are a number of D10 tables for the GM to roll on to create a unique world. And there are 10 core concepts of the world. The first is that the world is corrupt. The second is that violence is rampant. Society is deadly. Inequality is everywhere. Darkness is prevalent. Hope is dying. Supernatural is real. It influences the real world. Heroes are rare, and that is what the PCs are, but they are hunted by the abyss. So those are the 10 core principles of the game, and you roll on these tables and I'll give you a bit more information. There is also a nice adventure generator, which is 25 pages long, and we've got tables for adventures, cities, peoples, and factions. When it comes to the Bestiary, there is a good list of monsters, and basically it lists the hit dice and a special ability. If you want an attribute at any time for an NPC, just add their hit dice to the base score of 10 to give the attribute. The hit dice is used for the hit points, and it's also used for the powerful opponent rule we mentioned earlier. The sort of creatures and NPCs that we've got in there, we've got mobs, law enforcement, criminals, cultists, secret societies, mercenaries, common people, vampire council, lycanthropes, fairy counts, witches. We've got ghosts, lords of the abyss, elder gods, alien invaders, ancestral races, and failed experiments. So there is a good list of monsters at the back of this book. Damage is caused by the HD level of the creature, so there's no separate damage for each of the monsters. You just have a table which references the hit dice level, and that is usually in the range of 1d6 - 1 up to 3d6. Each creature has a table to roll on for what they're doing and what they want. And they're also a very nice monster creator to create your own. So if you look at something like the secret societies, one of them is a wizard, which is a 4 to 6 hit dice. Their special attribute abilities are they can use a number of powers equal to the hit dice with an attribute score of 10 plus HD. They also know 1d6 pieces of information the PCs might need. They can drain a point of luck in an attack unless a victim passes a willpower test. So what are they doing? There's 6 choices, and one could be invading a secured facility, or they could be destroying a scientific object. What do they want? And again, we've got 6 choices. It could be to keep humanity safe. It could be to become enlightened. It could be something like to control all the world's resources. So it's got some nice tables there to give you some ideas of what you're doing with the character, with the NPC. There are a list of optional rules, and the optional rules are Drunken Luck, Daring Points, Adventuring Companion, Solitary Heroes, Multi-Archetype Characters, and Twists of Fate. I'm not going to go into details for those. They're optional rules, and if you want to know more about them, you can look into them. And there is a nice inspiration section in the appendix at the back to give you what sort of things inspired this game. And looking at this list, you can see that it does really hit the mark. So it's such things as Solomon Kane by Robert E. Howard, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Cthulhu. When it comes to comics, it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Walking Dead, Hellboy. TV shows, things like Supernatural, The X-Files, Grimm, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Movies like Blade, Zombieland, Van Helsing, Underworld, Planet Terror. And also there are several games listed as well, like The Black Hack, Dark Places and Demogorgons, some of Diogo's previous games, World of Darkness, Call of Cthulhu. So it's always nice to have an inspiration and a set of rules to know what the designer was thinking of. So that is my look at Dark Streets and Darker Secrets. Definitely worth the £2 that I bought it for, so I can highly recommend that one. Or if you don't want to spend the money, first go and have a look at the Old School blog, check it out. You can download the entire text there. You can have a read through that and see if it's worth spending your hard-earned cash on. So that's all for this episode. If you want any more information, remember, you can always check out the website at petejones.neocities.org, the itch.io website that I mentioned now at the beginning of this podcast, and obviously the blog. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening. Catch you all on the flip side.